welcome back to the show. News is that MLB has delivered a proposal to the union on when baseball may start again. I normally don't like talking about things until I've seen communication from the union and I've understood what's actually in the deal. So all of this is going to be taken with a grain of salt because this is just us talking about what we know publicly from the articles that have been written and things that have been floated in the public. We should know more in the next couple days as we hear more from the union on what's actually written there and all the different takes. But this is just our reaction to what's out there publicly currently. So thank you, Rachel, for joining me. For those who don't know who Rachel is my agent, a longtime friend of mine, and very smart baseball mind in the agenting world. So what do you think of the proposal overall?
Overall, I'm excited that there's a proposal because I know there's been a lot of media articles and whatnot kind of swirling around out there about baseball maybe going to start, when it's going to start. People have like exact dates, which I know, and I know you know, that it's like nothing is concrete. So the fact that we know that there's actually a proposal now and we can make some headway on it, I feel good about. I don't necessarily feel good about what I've, publicly seen in the proposal so far, mostly with respect to pay for me.
We're going to get into that for sure, but I wanted to ask you what you think about the tactic of a lot of these details have been leaked, right? People were saying days ago, like, oh, there's going to be a proposal, and nothing had been agreed upon by the owners yet. Nothing had been agreed upon by MLB or even sent to the union or anything, right? And so clearly this is a tactic where someone with inside information is allowing this information to get out and be put in the public sphere. What?
My guess, if I had to guess, it is not coming from the player side and it is coming from the league and team side. There's obviously a lot of, strategy that goes into how you leak information, even when it isn't necessarily official or publicly available or anything like that, because it's a way to kind of gauge fan response. It's a way to get people, think about all the things that people are starting to say, and suddenly it almost seems, and we almost thought a week ago that maybe MLB made a proposal and it's the players that are just not answering, right? So it put this, I feel like it almost makes the players look badly. They're not, trying to get baseball started, because we have this idea that MLB is doing stuff.
As a negotiation tactic.
Smart.
You think it's smart to do that? Is there language? I don't know. I always hear people talk about you're not supposed to negotiate through the media. Do you know if that's actually agreed upon? Is there language that says that? Or, you hear it all the time in free agency, someone, usually that's on the player side, where they'll leak we have offers for X amount of money from 10 different teams or whatever to try to get a bidding war going. This time it's clearly coming from the other side, because I haven't seen any proposal at all out on the player side. So, but do you know, is there language that's supposed to be illegal, or is it just kind of frowned upon?
So it's prohibited and there's language that states that in the collective bargaining agreement when it comes to free agency. And for a good reason, right? Because there is, you can shift the market dramatically by leaking information, because a lot of times the leaked information isn't always correct. It's just slightly correct, partially correct.
Yeah, you only leak the parts that are beneficial to your...
Yeah, and there's parts of... Sometimes it doesn't even come off as necessarily beneficial, at first glance to the party who leaked it, but there's a reason they're doing it, and there's usually only a partial element of truth to it.
Yeah.
In this case, again, this is something that is uncharted territory for baseball, so there isn't... there's no language about using the media in this case, because when have we ever even dealt with this before?
That's true.
So yes, there is language when it comes to free agency and using the media to leak information, and it's prohibited.
Yeah. But even in free agency, it happens all the times on both sides. So like, there's clearly no way of penalizing it, or it just doesn't get penalized, right?
Yeah, you're not supposed to, there are ways that you can use the media if you're not, there are ways you can use the media even in free agency that are permissible. Like, there are guidelines you can follow. It's not just like you can't talk to anybody. But you cannot, like, another agent can't speculate on another player and his free agency, things like that.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, we're going to put it up on the screen right now, what we have so far, publicly at least. Put it up there on screen for you guys to see. 82 games, universal DH, 30-man rosters with a 20-man taxi squad. We got expanded postseason. We got the 50-50 proposed rev split between owners and players, supposedly. I'm not sure if that's even the split that's officially in the agreement, but... And
we have the divide of you just playing divisions.
Yeah, the regional nature of it.
So the NL Central would play just the NL Central to kind of try to limit the traveling, and that, a lot of that is because of, trying to fit a bunch of games in. You're going to have fewer off days, and they want to make the travel, more manageable for players.
Yep. So I guess we'll just jump into the first one, 82 games. How do you see that playing out? Are you fine with 82 games? Do you see any reason there may be contention between the two sides on that?
No, because I think this is one area where I feel very strongly that both sides want the same thing. They want to play as many games as possible because you guys want to get paid, and teams want to make money. They want their TV deals, that everything that comes along with having a season. So if we're going to have a season, once we make that decision we're going to have season, I think both sides want as many games as possible. So would I like more? Of course. Do I think it's getting to the point where, this is probably the most we're going to be able to get and be reasonable for players? Yeah.
What do you think about the off days and how that would be structured? I mean, this is kind of going into something we'll talk about in a second with the expanded rosters and the taxi squad. But there's language in the CBA about off days for players. You're not allowed to play more than X amount of games in a row without having an off day unless there's extenuating circumstances. Towards the end of the season, this happens sometimes where a game got rained out early in the season. You don't play that team again until September. You have to make it up on an off day before that series, and so you end up playing 30 games straight or something like that. But you're not supposed to play more than 20... Is it 21? I'm not sure the exact number, but it's somewhere around there straight without being able to have an off day. And so over the course of a 162 game season, we get, I think it's now 18 off days or 20
it got bumped up from in the last bargaining agreement. Now you guys have more off days. All of this is predicated on the fact that players, you guys have to agree, because it goes against what you both agreed on in the CBA. So you guys have to agree to it. I think because they have made changes in terms of, you're not, if you're only playing the NL Central, you're not traveling, across country. You guys always have off days if you're going coast to coast, but that's not really going to happen. Your coastal teams like Seattle, Florida, those teams, it's more difficult for them. But so, I can see not having fewer off days for them, that's going to be difficult. It'll be much more manageable, I think, for the middle of the country and the central.
Yeah, for sure. And off days too, I think, just with hotels, different cities, limiting the travel restrictions not only makes it easier on travel, but it makes it easier to have less travel so you can play more frequently, don't need as many off days. But also the logistical problems with traveling, it's getting a chartered plane, making sure that's sanitary and safe. And I think that's one of the things that has been overlooked a little bit right now is just the safety of everybody involved. But then also going to a hotel, getting hotel reservations. Some cities may have different guidelines that are set out, and then if the virus starts coming back a little bit and some may shut down, I'm not sure. So limiting travel definitely makes sense. I do think it presents some...
My issue, or I guess I don't know how the 82 games, and not having off days isn't going to limit you're still going to be traveling like the same amount of days. It's just you're not going to be traveling as far.
Yeah, a lot of the off days are based on travel, though. It's like...
Yeah, because of the distance.
Because of the distance, right. So
you're still traveling as much.
Yeah, we're still traveling, but you may need less off days because of the distance, and then you can get maybe more games in. Also, with the taxi squad and the expanded rosters, and we'll get into the implications of that in a second, like I said, but I think it's interesting that, it's 82 games. We're going to try to get in basically half a season, and you're only going to be playing against your division, or not only, but mostly against your division. So then...
I think it isn't... From what I've read, it's only your division.
I think there was supposed to be like 10 extra games or something like that in there for interleague, or in one of the articles I read. But again, we haven't seen any of this. We're just going by public information.
Everything is just... Anything that is public is not official anyway, so we're just going off of public.
But let's say it is that you only play your division. Then a division that may not be as strong, let's take the AL Central that last year anyway had a couple of the worst teams in baseball, right? And then you take a division like the AL East that was one of the most competitive divisions in baseball, with the Rays and the Yankees both being two of the best teams. And so now their schedule is going to be more difficult than the Central. And then you're going to have...
but you still had that even when you play all the teams. Now it's not nearly as skewed this way, but you can't tell me that the AL Central last year, the competition that they had overall versus, the East, the AL East, or, 2 or 3 years ago when you had the NL West, you had the Dodgers and the Giants and the Rockies and then the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
Every single one of those teams basically could have been a division winner in any other division. So I think you always have that problem, but yeah, it'll be worse.
What do you think about the fans? Obviously, there probably not going to be fans in the stands to start the season. Hopefully, we can get fans back in the stands in some capacity as the season goes along. But
maybe we can do what KBO did, and you can buy. Did you see you were on air with them, and they had the cutout. Did you pay attention to that at all? Mm-hmm. They had the cutout fans in the stands, and apparently you can purchase to have your face.
Cutout.
Yeah, so your face you look like on TV is a fan in the stands. They're all 6 feet apart. I thought that was interesting. Here's another way that teams can make some revenue since they're getting hit so hard.
Yeah, cameras too. You put cameras in certain seats and have people
tune in like
the live streams like they're sitting at different parts of the ballpark. I think that'd be something that was really cool as well. But assuming that fans, one of the things that happens during the regular season is because each team plays the entire league, you get a sampling of a bunch of different teams coming through, and you get to see the stars from around the league. Whereas now, maybe there won't be fans at all, but now you won't get to see that same sampling.
I guess, so from the other viewpoint, I think there's an argument to be made. There's almost like more competition and... I can't think of the word I'm looking for here, but, where if you're even the Yankees and, I don't know, just the Rangers come to play you. Like most people in New York are just like, it's kind of like an series. It doesn't mean much. Yeah. But now all the time for them, and even, take take the Central, take you guys. Every single, like when you guys play your division, it's much more competitive, or the fans care more. Whereas like they don't really care. I'm not saying they don't really care, but and you get the handful of people that they grew up, they're big fans of that team. But the entire city is much more invested when you play in your division.
That's true. And then also with half the games, it's going to be a sprint.
Yeah.
Every game is going to matter.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, because most people, especially when you get into those summer months, a lot of people are just like, games don't, people kind of lose that,
Yeah, players, fans, it kind of gets to the slow part of the season. Summer's there, you're out, it's 4th of July. Game
100, you're like, okay, we lost, I don't care.
We're 4 games back, but we have 60 to go, anything can happen.
Whereas it matters now.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so then the rosters. Before we touch on the universal DH and some of the other things, the rosters play a big part of this because of the off days and all that. So we're going to expand rosters supposedly to 30 people on the roster. So more spots in the big leagues for guys that may not have been in the big leagues. So good for players in that sense. They're going to have to be paid big league minimum or whatever their contracts say. So more money, I guess, being doled out by the owners to pay the players, plus a 20-man taxi squad, which basically, for those that don't know what a taxi squad is, it's within taxi distance of the ballpark. Some teams used to this has kind of been phased out, but it used to be where you could call up a couple people from the minor leagues, have them in the city in case you needed them, and they would just stay at the hotel, but they would never be activated on the roster. And so if a pitcher maybe was potentially sick or couldn't make a start, or you didn't know if a player was going to be able to play and has he's banged up, his oblique is tired, or whatever it is, you bring 3 or 4 players up, sit them at the hotel, take them away from the minor leagues, so they're not playing games, they're sitting at the hotel, they're not getting big league compensation, they're not getting big league service time, but they're still, there in the city in case the big league team needs them. So that's kind of been phased out normally. That happens every now and then, but now they're talking about having an actual taxi squad.
Would they be paid? I mean, have they addressed that? Yeah, I don't think that's been addressed yet.
Certainly not publicly. I haven't seen any discussion of that. I'm assuming that because the minor league season has it officially been canceled? I'm not sure.
It was, there were rumors, and then, we've been told no, but
yeah,
who
knows at this point?
I don't know who to believe anymore.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess in this case, you would have your minor leaguers that would make up most of the AAA team now up at.
You'd have to pay them though.
You're gonna have to pay them something, but I don't know what they're gonna get paid. Maybe their AAA salary, but then they get paid. I'm assuming the reason for it is that you would be able to change your roster day to day, so you could bring
and give guys more off days.
Off days, right?
Also, I think you have to consider the fact that what if people get sick? Mm-hmm. What are you going to do if your entire? And it spreads quickly. What if your entire rotation goes down with COVID?
Yeah, that's true.
And it might not be. It might be something where you just quarantine. You guys might not have bad symptoms either. Mm-hmm. You guys just might test positive. Mm-hmm. And you might be fine and healthy, but you guys have to be, I'm assuming here that you're not in the hospital, and you might have to be quarantined for 14 days or whatever it is. And you're gonna have to create a new team.
And then how often are you gonna be able to change your roster? Is it a day by day thing? So can you take the 4 starting pitchers that aren't playing that day, take them off the roster, and then put 4 position players on there? But then are the people that are not on the roster still getting paid big league?
Yes, if you're on, because I think that goes towards the service time from the original agreement that you're getting when you're on the big league roster.
But then if they take you off the active roster,
I think it would. I don't think that it would be in the agreement, and I can't see a scenario where where teams would even ask this, that you wouldn't get, just because they're trying to move players around and give you a day off, that you wouldn't get your service.
Well, what about the people on the taxi squad that come up? Do they now get big league service time? So more than the full amount of big league service time is going to be awarded this year? Full amount meaning normally you have 750 players, and then you have 7 times 182 days. So you have a certain allotment of service time that gets handed out. split evenly amongst the players by the time that they played. But now you may have people that aren't on that day's roster still getting big league service time, but then the taxi squad people...
I think I'm not sure how that would work, and I don't think that's something that's been figured out yet. I know that if you're on, from what the taxi squad means, you're not on the active roster, and you're not going to be somebody on a taxi squad. It's going to be, the minor league guys that they might need. So the way service time works, and that was already agreed upon, I'm not sure would apply the same way. But it also means that players that are on, that are big league players are not going to be shifted to the taxi squad. Maybe they will theoretically, but they're still going to get their full service.
As an agent, and you have a player that may be on the taxi squad, or maybe one of those kind of 4A players where he's up and down between the big leagues and AAA, this has to be a good thing for those guys, right? Like, you have to, as an agent, you got to look at this and say this is a blessing in disguise in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives them an opportunity. Think about how many guys are, just on these, insanely talented teams, and they might be great players, and then on any other team they might be your starting guy, but they're just stuck behind a bunch of talent, and they don't really have a chance to shine. Putting them on a the taxi squad and giving them a chance, it's almost like when players in that situation get traded to another team, and finally it might be not a great team, but finally they get to show like, hey, I can do this too, and show their value. I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of players that might never have gotten the opportunity.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the guys that come up and show, get some playing time, like you said, that they might not have gotten, and are able to show their skills.
We saw that with the Yankees last year. Remember, you had almost their entire team was on the DL or IL, and yet they were still dominating.
Yeah.
And by these guys that everyone was like, who are they?
Mm-hmm.
They were just, they're the minor league nobodies.
Yeah.
But they would have been,
players,
and they would have been probably starters on, a handful of other teams.
Yeah, you see like Giovanni Urshela, who I played with in Cleveland, that got kind of some time here and there, but never super consistent. And finally, because of injuries, had to play every day to fill that hole, and then just went off and had a great year. And a lot of other players there as well.
Of players that happen. The injuries are, but for somebody else's injury and bad luck, they may never have had a chance, and it's a blessing for them.
Last thing I wanted to ask you on this topic is, arbitration-wise, free agency-wise, expanded rosters mean less, I'm assuming, less at-bats for everybody, except for maybe the top couple hitters that are going to play every day, because you're going to be subbing guys in and out based on matchups. Less innings probably for starters, because you're going to have more relievers. I know it's a weird year anyway, but how do you see it affecting?
So this was going to be weird no matter what happened.
Right.
So all of it, from the way that it's been explained, at least to the agents, is that they are going to have basically a unique 2020 model of how to handle arbitration, and none of these cases will be precedent going forward.
So then in 2021,
you
your
will
most
not
recent
use
comps will be 2019 comps?
Yes, you won't be able to use them, and they're going to, they will create a way to be able to evaluate, based on these limited numbers that you're going to have, because obviously they're not going to take a guy, that starts, doesn't miss a single start if we play 82 games and he only ends up with, half the number of starts, and then you're going to say, treat him like a guy who was injured.
Yeah.
So they have that figured out.
They'll compare him to other people in the league. So let's say a starter is averaging only 4 innings a start, but not because he's ineffective necessarily, but just because you have extra relievers, and so then the team chooses to play matchups. If every team is doing that, then he'll just be compared against the other people that are under the same...
my thought, and the way I understand it, is that a lot of it is going to be current class guys that you're going to compare yourself to. Again, that's limited, especially given what year you are. for you, you had 2 other current class guys and they weren't even that relevant to you. So that limits it, but they're going to do, they're going to proportionally figure it out based on whatever. You'll have averages of this season. What were the averages, and what they'll be able to do some math there.
Yeah, but this is also going to be like interesting, because how often do you see guys come out and have really good first halves and then fade in the second half, right? And so they're going to get paid. Let's say a guy's going into arbitration for the first time and he has a really good first half of the season. Well, that's going to be the entire season this year, if it's only half a season. So he has a really good first half, and now he's going to jump to the top. He might be the best pitcher, right? He's going to get paid, let's say he gets paid $5 million first time in arbitration. Then next year he goes out and has a full season, and then is not in the same position relative to his peers, and he's maybe middle of the class. And then you start comparing him against 2019 people, and you're like, oh, well, 2019 peers that had that same performance would make, $4 million second time arb, or $5 million, and now he's already there. Now he's going to be bumped up.
That's how
he's going to ride through the entire time, right?
But that's how the process works. I mean, a lot of times you have one great season. If one great platform year can make a massive difference. Yeah. I mean, you saw the huge jump you had in 2018 with your great platform year. Mm-hmm. You were able to jump. You were in a market before that with, Stroman was right there, and you jumped, way ahead of him. Yeah. So you profited off of that, and then guess what happened the next year? Even though maybe your seasons were much similar, he's only, he doesn't even get to go up, and you still get to go up way higher. Yeah, so that's how the arbitration process works, no matter what. It'll definitely play out here. But I talk to players all the time and you see stats from players that they, it takes them the first half of the season to really warm up. Yeah. And then they go on a roll, and, they finish off really strong. You always, up until last season, that's how you were. Oh, well, I guess in the beginning, but the last few years, with the exception of last season, mm-hmm. you were like that. Yeah. So imagine not even getting that. Imagine in 2017, where you were the best pitcher, that like in baseball, the last 2 months, you wouldn't get that. Right. You would have been not great. Yeah. One of the bottom of the pack.
Yeah. On the other hand, though, last year
you would have benefited.
I was borderline all-star contention leading into the halfway mark of the season, which is slightly before all-star selections are even made.
And you would have qualified already.
I had whatever. So I would have been. Yeah. My year would have looked a lot better.
We did this in your arbitration when we were looking at your hearing for your hearing or your case this last year. If we stopped you when you got traded, you would have qualified for the ERA title with 100. You would have been over 162 innings, which looks like a full season, as a starting pitcher, and you would have had a 3.5 ERA. Yeah. If we just stopped you right there, which a lot of other pitchers
that's their
only
full
got
season,
to, right. You would have been.
Yeah, it looks a lot different.
Much better off.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Let's talk about the universal DH, because I think this is something that's been floated around baseball for a while as potentially good, potentially bad. What do you think?
I'm all for it.
You like it?
I'm a big proponent of it. I think it gives, looking from, as an advocate for players, it provides more opportunities for players, more jobs. And I'm not a fan of watching, with the exception of a few pitchers, Bumgarner. Okay, Bartolo, no.
Yeah, what? Bartolo's the best guy to watch hit.
Okay, yes. Yeah. Big sexy.
Yeah, that's right.
What a guy. Bumgarner and Greinke. I like watching them hit.
Because they're competitive at bats.
Yeah, but other than that, it's a waste of an at bat. And especially representing a pitcher, it's frustrating as hell to see, you're back in the NL and you're getting pulled because your team needs to score more runs, and you're not probably going to give that to them when you get to the plate. Yeah. So I'm all for it. I think pitcher, I get the argument that there's, strategy that has to go into the manager's job of, managing the lineup much more when you have, when the pitcher has to hit. But personally, from like an entertainment, standpoint of just like a fan watching it, I don't want to watch the pitcher hit. And from a, player representative, I would like a DH.
Yeah, that makes sense. Two things that you said I thought were really interesting. I'll start at the beginning of, what you say it offers more jobs for players. Like, can you explain that a little bit? Is that because the teams have to carry a specified like designated hitter?
And because a lot of times guys who might struggle defensively, right? And they want someone else might be better defensively out there, but you have a power hitter.
But in the NL, you have to carry like another utility guy, because you don't have to carry that DH. I guess it opens up more of like a role player type of. So that's where some of the strategy comes into it, I guess.
I think also what happens is when you see guys starting to get older, their defensive numbers obviously, I think, tend to fall more significantly, and their value is much less in the outfield. Whereas I think they can maintain. I mean, if I think it is easier to maintain their hitting, assuming that they keep working on it, making adjustments, than just their ability to be a Gold Glove defensive player.
Yeah, you see a guy like Jason Giambi, who I played with in 2013, I think, in Cleveland for a little bit. Like, could not play the field, but is still valuable as a leader, as a hitter, pinch hit bat. Guy like David Ortiz as well, who didn't play much defense as the last couple of years of his career, but was still a 300 hitter and a huge cog in the wheel in the middle of the lineup and stuff like that.
You look at Encarnacion, he does play. I mean, he plays first, but a lot of times he DHs as well. And
yeah,
I think it just also, I mean, if we're in this era of we want a better run scoring environment and more home runs and stuff, I mean, let's use a DH.
Well, then the other argument, I guess, on that, and this really comes down to the second thing I wanted to ask is, like, what do you think fans would rather see? Because you have the strategy of the pitcher, and so that's more of a thinking baseball fans type of thing. He was thinking along with the manager, if he pinch hits here, and let's get the bunt down there, and we can move the guys around. And some people would argue that small ball with the pitcher is kind of what they like seeing about baseball. They like the hit and runs. They like the sacrifices. They like that type of stuff. Other people would argue that it's boring and they want to see more balls put in play and pitchers strike out a lot and there's a dead spot in the lineup. And what you get is the 8-hole hitter usually gets walked a lot of the times to get to the pitcher. So now you have two no action at bats versus not being able to do that with a DH. So where do you think fans come down on, which is enjoying the game? Do you think they like strategy more? Do you think there's more fans that like strategy, or do you think there's more fans that like the DH and seeing home runs and stuff?
I have a very strong opinion on what I feel about that. And that is, I think the older generation likes the strategy more, and they tend to, and again, this is just my belief from what I've seen and heard from fans, that they are much more against a universal DH. They don't want to change the game. This is how it's always been. I think younger fans just want to see more action. And strategy is really interesting, but it's not action. Yeah. It's not something that when fans watch, it's not exciting.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But I think the younger generation overall is probably they're probably the ones that lean more towards wanting a DH, more action. And I mean, you have a DH in one league.
That's the other part.
And then you have to go to and then the World Series. It's weird.
Yeah, so you have two different sets of rules. I think it's got to be the only league that plays by two different sets of rules, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. The only league that's on a non-standard field size. So some of the history
Quirky,
and the culture of baseball that I think a lot of fans are kind of worried about losing. that gets there. But speaking of excitement, because I think this is a nice segue into the next topic, the 14-team proposed postseason. So as it is right now, you have 3 division winners, then you have the wild card and then the second wild card, and those 2 teams have the 1-game playoff, and then there's 4 teams in each league, and then you have your playoffs. So now the proposal is 14 teams. So you're adding 2 teams, 2 more wild card teams in each league. Lots of stuff here on the monetary side, and definitely we'll get to that because that's about the 50-50 split too, and we'll kind of end on that. But excitement-wise, 14 teams in the postseason, good thing or bad thing?
It depends on who you're talking to. For fans, great thing. It's more. Well, I think it's more exciting.
Sure, because there's more on the line, right? But does that not then devalue some of the regular season? Because if you know, like, if you're not the best team in the league, you're going to be in a wild card series of some sort. So does it devalue winning the division for...
But how many teams... Look at the Baltimore Orioles last year. I mean, how many... And there's a handful of them that are like that, where the entire season is just like they know for a fact they will not be in the postseason. Like, after game 30, they've already almost, like, eliminated. Not actually. But, you know...
It's obvious.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And then... And I mean, last year, it was early that it was the Orioles that they were eliminated, like, at a record.
September, yeah.
Yeah. So I think this kind of makes it more exciting. Like, hey, guess what, Orioles fans? There is a chance that you actually might be in the postseason.
There might be some sub-500 teams.
Yeah.
That
Just
are in
makes
the postseason.
I think it will give fans that are, especially fans that are used to, you know, or for the last few years have been stuck in these cities or, you know, with these teams, that they just feel like, you know, can we ever even break 500? Like, we can't, we're not competing. It gives them a chance maybe to compete. But, you know, I think I feel one way about it just because I see the benefits that the teams are getting, and I want to make sure players, you know, are equally kind of benefiting from all the value, or at least proportionally, that they're going to give teams for having this. But I'm curious.
Equal value, let's assume there's equal value. You're for it. You, like, 14 teams.
I mean, for this year,
For this year? Okay.
Because I just, like, I think this year is the perfect year. Like, let's just have fun. Let's play with it. Let's do weird things and try stuff out. Let's try out a universal DH, because, you know, there's no harm. Like, there's always going to be an asterisk by this season. Yeah. It's a weird season.
It's crazy. The winner of this season will legitimately win a World Series because we're agreeing on a set of rules. They go out and they play, and they're the best team. They will have an asterisk next to their name in the history books, and the Astros won't.
Yeah. I know. I was waiting for that.
Yeah, I had to. But okay, so.
But I'm curious, from a player's perspective, how do you feel about that?
I see both sides. I don't have super strong feelings on it one way or the other. Playoff baseball, just experientially, is awesome. Yeah. So the more chances you have to get in and give yourself a chance, like, that's what we all show up to spring training wanting to do, you know? Mm-hmm. You try to make the postseason. I don't think anyone's going to feel like, because we're the 14th team in, it just is devalued and we don't really belong. Yeah. It's not going to be that. We're like, oh, we have a chance.
You have a chance, yeah. You know, every wild card team gets it, goes in thinking. You could get hot right then at the right time and make a deep run. Look at the Nationals
last
year.
Absolutely. You know, and they were a couple games from being caught by... they played the Indians, but the Indians last year fell a game or two short of making a postseason run, you know, and they were hot closing down the stretch, and, you know, the first 2 months weren't as good and really closed pretty strongly. So I think that's good. I think it would give a lot of incentive and make the games more interesting down the stretch for more teams, which would probably give a more competitive environment overall, which is ultimately what we want. You know, we don't want to go play a team in the middle of September that or you know, see our rival that we're trying to catch playing a team that's definitely out of it, that's packed it in for the year, right? So that's a higher competitive standard. Then there's the monetary side of things, like are we going to get compensated for additional games in the postseason? And the reason that you want more postseason games as MLB and the owners is because it is exciting. It does well on TV ratings. A lot of people tune into postseason baseball. A lot more people tune into postseason baseball than regular season baseball.
Well, we talked about this in one of our other videos too, of how the postseason, how that money and the compensation works in the postseason. But I think, the owners, you say like they want it because it's exciting, but it's mostly because of the revenue.
It's all money. It's exciting, so it draws more TV ratings, which draws more dollars, and then.
But their motivation is
and they don't pay out nearly as much dollars in the postseason, and so they make a lot of their money on postseason baseball. Yeah. The other side of it, though, is more games. Obviously, they're high leverage games, but more games. More injury risk, so that you'd want the compensation to be there, but then also how, like the structure of how it's going to be done. If you're a division winner, like let's take last year for example, the Astros and the Yankees were like two of the best teams in baseball, right? Well, sure, they can battle it out for the best record, but then you're going to tell me that the second best team in baseball is going to have to play a 3-game wild card, even though they're let's say they're 10 games better than anybody else in baseball. You have 210 win teams and no one else breaks 100, which could happen. 110 win team is now going to have to play a 3-game wild card because they don't get the bye. I guess.
But it happens this way too. I look at when did that happen? Even the last few years, you've had teams. The Indians have been in the postseason, or a lot of times the Central, where they barely break 100, and then you have the Red Sox or the Yankees, whatever, who are well over 100, and they could get knocked out in the first, in the DS by.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's competitive. Like, let's say you have a team that's just running away with it, and the Yankees are going to be the best record in baseball, or whoever, and it's a 112 win team, and one of the whatever. Like, is there any incentive then for the second place team? Let's say the Astros or whatever were second place at 99 wins or 100 wins. Is there any incentive for them to try to continue winning down September, or are they going to pull back and just get everybody like tuned up to try to make a postseason run? So I can see some competitive nature there.
Sure, but you've told me this before too. That one of the hardest things, and I think one of the reasons that you feel like was it 2018 that you guys thought, was it 17 or 18 that you thought the Indians had a good chance, they should have won?
17, yeah.
17? And your division was so not competitive the entire year that the hardest thing was to ramp up the intensity when you come to the postseason. So, my argument would be, you want to stay, create some sort of incentive. You just back off and like, oh, let's just chill out a little. Yeah. Then how are you going to ramp it back up?
Yeah, that's true.
Everything is shortened. Yeah. So I think you're thinking of this, in the 162 game lens.
That's true. That's a fair point.
This is a smaller.
You're probably not going to have as much of a spread. In 82 games. I'm curious about the structure. What you think about that? Proposed Sunday, last day of the season, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, a best of 3 wild card with then the normal divisional round starting on Thursday. I'm in favor of a best of 3, but the higher seed starts up 1-0. But this seems like a best of 3 overall proposal. Again, who knows what's actually in the proposal, This is actually one of the things I brought up to Rob when we talked in spring training, is that I think this is an interesting, good idea, because it would somewhat penalize the lower seeded all-star or the lower seeded wild card teams, and still give the higher seeded teams a benefit while still penalizing them for not being the best team.
I think we can do a separate video on the postseason structure, but. Yeah, I think there has to be a way to incentivize teams to finish, with better records. Yeah. And giving them a leg up in the postseason. Yeah. But how you do it, and again, we can do a whole video on that. Yeah. And we've talked about this before.
All right.
It's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to dive into that, but I think the biggest thing for this video is the dollars and cents, because I think that's what this whole negotiation is going to center around, and I think that's what's going to cause a lot of, at least from what we've seen publicly, that's going to cause a lot of kind of friction between the owners and the players. So let's start on the postseason side, structure side. We've talked about this before. Players make postseason money based on the number of fans in the stands and the live gate. If there's no fans in the stands, do players get paid? That's going to have to be negotiated, right? Yeah. So are we going to get a share of the TV deal?
As of right now, you make your playoff shares. And again, if anyone wants a better breakdown of that, you can watch our other video we did on it about the 60-game season. But you get your shares based on gate revenue. Mm-hmm. As of right now, if there's no gate revenue, you're not getting paid. So there's going to have to be a negotiation about it. But that leads us into the 50-50 rev split.
Yeah, so expanded postseason, more TV money. Normally players don't get any percent of the TV money. All the TV money in the postseason goes to the owner's side. Now they're asking again for for the players to take less money to play, and this is where we both have pretty strong feelings on this one. So.
And this comes in, like, for me, the way I feel about it is that, and I think it's important to make it clear that so your contracts are guaranteed.
Yep.
That means if you show up, you can be injured and you will get your money. As long as you are on the team, they are guaranteed you're going to get paid.
Even if you're not on the team, if they cut you, if they release you,
yes, but
you still get there's certain stipulations around that, but
so you're going to get paid. You can be injured and you do not play and you will get paid. So that's how we should start with that understanding. Now going into this,
the contracts aren't you get paid X amount per game you play. Yes. It's just when you sign on the dotted line, like for me this year, 17-5, I signed on the dotted line. Yeah.
Once the season starts, then you'll get paid.
That's when I'll get paid.
So they're guaranteed. Whether you can get injured and the owners will pay you. And they understand that is the risk that they're taking, that you might not be able to play, whatever. Like all these things are, considered. So you have guaranteed contracts, and now the MLB season, which we've explained, kind of what happened in other videos too about, that they were able to suspend the season and the contracts and the pay. So after the season was originally suspended, there were initial negotiations between both sides on how are we going to handle service time, how are we going to handle resuming play, how are we going to handle pay, all of these things. And there was an agreement. Mm-hmm. And this agreement stated that basically both sides the players will agree to a prorated salary. Mm-hmm. And in return, there were some other things that went back and forth, but the big thing was you guys agreed to that, which was huge for the teams. Mm-hmm. So they don't have to pay you for the full season once you start playing. You'll only pay for the games.
If we play 81 games,
you'll get paid your
half of what
$17.5 million for you divided by 81 games.
Yeah.
Or
if we play
82 games.
If we play 81 games, it's exactly half of a normal season, so I'll make exactly half of my pay.
And so this, this whole, if you play less, you get paid less. Exactly. The players agreed to that. Yeah. And they said, okay, fine. We understand that we might not have a full season, and so we'll agree to that. And in return, you got full year of service. And that's a whole, separate video. And going into that, but focusing on the payment. So this was agreed upon. And it was also agreed upon in this agreement that there would, both sides would negotiate in good faith and try to resume season, as soon as possible. And there were a few stipulations, kind of guidelines to follow. And those
obviously nothing that could be concrete because we didn't know how the landscape was going to play out or what the government was going to say or anything.
But they wanted, both sides agreed that they would think about things, such as obviously what does the CDC recommend, with travel, like how's travel going to work and how, and then with, players, right? So if you guys are allowed to have or, play games with fans or not. So these were things that they both agreed they would think about with trying to resume season. But it was also agreed that there is a possibility that there might not be able to be fans at all if we try to play this year.
Right.
And so in light of that and acknowledging that, both sides understood that and agreed to negotiate in good faith, try to start the season in good faith, and if it was going to start, it would follow the guidelines of a specific formula, which is a prorated salary. Mm-hmm. It at no point said that if we don't have fans, and there's a possibility of that, then we also will reconsider compensation.
So I think one of the confusing parts, at least to me, when I was trying to go through it and figure out exactly what the language was, is that in the recommendations where it says, okay, we'll operate in good faith, both sides agree on that, and then we'll start the season as soon as it's safe and practical. And some of the guidelines are, okay, the CDC has cleared for games to, the states are open, travel is open enough that we can make it happen. And we'll resume play when fans are able to be back in the stands. And these are just part of the guidelines, with then a stipulation saying that if there are not fans in the stands, both sides agree that we'll have to consider those possibilities to come together and figure out that it may not be a possibility because fans may not be able to be back in the stands for a year or 2 years or however long. So we'll agree to operate in good faith on considering those options. And
I think it's important to understand that having fans back in the stands, the reason that this, I think it was also kind of put in there that we are aware and we acknowledge that we might need to consider the possibility that fans can't be in the stands, and we'll figure out a way to move forward, because that's not a universal, like, the president doesn't say, okay, all fans can go back in the stands. It's a state-by-state thing. Yeah. So what do you do when half of the states say, sure, fans are allowed back in, and the other half don't?
Like Arizona just now said that sporting events can start on the 15th.
Yeah.
But then California on the same day in LA County said that lockdowns are continuing for 3 more months.
So we're going to follow the guidelines of, of these things, and that includes the CDC, that includes, when fans can start going back in the stands. Now we start to see, and the league has seen, the league kind of sees the light at the end of the tunnel, which is why they made this proposal to the union. And, we see states starting to open up a little bit. Not all of them. Some of them, like California, is locking down more. So now that's kind of where I see the second part is triggered of there's a possibility that we have to consider that there might not be able to be fans in the stands. And that would be true for, maybe all of the games, maybe for only certain states, I don't know. But that we would operate in good faith and figure out a way to, start the season. They've made this proposal because they obviously feel like we can get to a point where we can play and it's safe to do so and whatnot. Then they're asking you, oh, but we're not going to make as much money on our revenue or on our ticket sales, which, by the way, is about 30% of their entire revenue that they make. So it's not a majority. They're getting money from and revenue from advertisements, from TV deals, from a whole bunch of other things. 30% is their ticket sales. And so now they're asking you guys who have already agreed to be paid less and to take a cut in your salary. You're going to go out and risk your health, your safety by playing. The owners aren't risking that. You are. Your families. I mean, we don't know yet if you guys are going to be separated from your families, how that's going to work, but you're risking something to bring sports back. The owners aren't risking it, and yet they're going to sit here and ask you to take an additional cut because they're not going to make whatever the 30% that they make.
Yeah, so the ask is basically take more risk by getting back sooner, and take less pay than you've already agreed. We've already agreed to take, under this proposal, 82 games, half, 50% pay cut.
Yeah.
And now they're asking us to take another pay cut.
Yeah. And they're still getting paid for their TV deals, and especially if you have a postseason. So they're going to get that revenue. You guys have taken, a huge cut in your salary. One
So
that
more
was
risk
guaranteed.
and, guaranteed contract.
That was negotiated.
Already
yes.
agreed in good faith to take less than a guaranteed contract because of the circumstances. Now they're asking us. Now they've agreed to pay us that, and now they're asking us to take on more risk by coming back early and make even less.
But then
money.
they're going to still have this very profitable postseason where they'll make all the TV deals and the 50-50 split to me is just they've already guaranteed you your money. You've already, because you've signed the contract, like you're already, once the season starts, you get paid. You have taken your cut. They're making a lot of money in still their TV deals.
One of the things I wanted to bring up on this is just the bookkeeping of it all. How, there are so many ways you can hide money. So if you were to go to a 50-50 revenue split, what is included in revenue, first of all? So is that all jersey sales, all concessions, all TV deals?
Well, jersey sales are already split among you guys.
Right, but does that get put in there? Does it not? Do you forego the prior agreement on jersey sales to put that all into revenue? Does only the 50% that they make get put into revenue, and then we get another 50% of that?
People that understand business well have seen profitable businesses that do very well still somehow finish the year because they understand how to move their money and loopholes.
Yeah.
So they have zero revenue.
And also, one of the main ones that I thought about for this is a lot of the owners own the parking structures around the stadium, the restaurants around the stadium, a lot of infrastructure around the stadium. So people coming to the stadium, players, fans, even if there aren't any fans, just the fact that there's baseball, it creates excitement around that area. Now those businesses make more money. So by us taking the risk of going and playing, their other businesses are going to be boosted and make more money. So let's say in a season that you do have fans, ticket prices are now $10 less, but parking is $10 more. Now you just shift, you're making the same amount of money because you own the parking garages, but now the revenue of the baseball is now not counted.
But you don't have fans that are going to...
Well, I'm saying if there were fans at a certain point in this season, to get people out, we understand that it's been a really tough time for everybody and we want to make ticket prices way less to give you some cheap entertainment. But they jack up the parking prices. Now it's like the revenue's down, so they pay players less, but they're still making... That's just one easy way that I can think of to a practical example that they could move money around. And that's why we've never had a 50-50 revenue split, because there's so many ways to hide the money. And also MLB's always been a closed book. They don't release their financials.
And so we'll get so many people that are going to tell us, well, hockey does it and, other sports. And first of all, I think hockey is the only one that does a true 50-50 split. The rest, it's different. But
the other two leagues, the NFL and NBA, have an actual salary cap.
But let's be clear that those are negotiated by their unions and the leagues, and they come to that agreement through negotiations and a full understanding. And the books are released, right? We understand how we have no idea, because baseball is the only sport that doesn't release any of that, and it's closed. We have an idea, but that's it. So to just now all of a sudden ask and assume that it should be just like if other sports do it, baseball should too. I think that's a silly kind of way to jump to a conclusion.
It's never been done in baseball. It's not collectively bargained. It would just be for this season. There's no, it doesn't sit well with me, because the other, slightly lighthearted, but if I'm going to have to trust my salary to Rob Manfred marketing the game to make more money for the game, I am out on that.
You're better off.
Let me market the game, then we'll make more money.
Make a lot more money.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and look, you guys, they knew this. I mean, I think it was Heyman tweeted today about how owners are saying that they will, without fans, they will not make a profit, and so they can't afford to pay even prorated salaries. My issue is, per the agreement, the original agreement, they understood that there was a possibility there wouldn't be fans, and yet they agreed to having a prorated salary. These are smart guys. That didn't just like, kind of fly over their head, and they didn't think about it, and like, oh shit, what if, it was in the agreement, and they're smart. I think they didn't have a problem with it because they got you to concede to something big that saved them a lot of money, and now they're in this position that I feel like they've made it seem like they have power here to get you guys to cave because you really want to play and you need to make money. But here's the thing, from the way I understand it, you don't need to give up any more of your salary. You've already made a concession, they agreed to it. And, because these billionaires are not going to make the same profit, which I still struggle with to believe that they're going to make zero profit.
Well, and if they're going to make no money this year, they're going to make it up other places next year.
Of course.
That's a whole nother topic about
for them to ask you to now say, wait a second, we're not going to have enough, then you should never have agreed the first time.
It's in writing.
It's in writing, and you did agree. And so either you're negotiating here in bad faith, and now you're trying to get a little more, a little more squeeze, more juice.
That's the trap that I think is interesting. You have the negotiation in good faith. So if they submit a proposal to us, and we were talking about this earlier, if they submit a proposal to us where they say, we think baseball can come back with 82 games on this date and this, and this, and they also put in there that, but it's only going to be able to do that if you guys take more pay cut.
And you said this to me. You were like, well, why won't they be able to then just say, actually, we're not sure that it's safe enough to do, and so, we don't want to do it. And my response to that was, then I think that's a clear indicator of them not negotiating good faith, because by them submitting a proposal, they're acknowledging that they believe the CDC guidelines suggest, based on everything,
there is a reasonable route to get back on the field,
and that it would be safe to do so. And it's for them, it's hinging on the fact that you guys accept less money. So for them to now backtrack and say, well, we actually don't think it's safe. Really, the reason is they just don't want to pay you what they originally agreed to pay. Mm-hmm. And therefore, they're not negotiating in faith, because that agreement, you can't go back on it. And
just the act of submitting the proposal with a timeline of when we could get back on the field kind of invalidates the argument that baseball can't start unless we can pay you less, right? Because it's already in writing that this is good faith. There is a route to get back. You're acknowledging it by submitting a proposal on how to get back. You've already agreed that players will get paid a prorated amount. Players have already given that up and said, yes, we'll accept being paid a prorated amount. And so this seems fairly cut and dry to me.
My hope is that players, can stand firm on this and realize, because from what I understand of it, there is, players would have a grievance if they tried to now go back and just basically, we're not going to start the season unless you pay less. Because I want everyone to imagine another scenario where you negotiate with somebody, you agree to something, and steps to move forward, and then you take those steps moving forward, but they want to ask you, but hey, remember in that negotiation right before this, we want you to actually give us a little more.
Yeah.
That's not how that works. That's not how a negotiation works.
Yeah. And I know there's going to be people in the comments that are like, well, players get paid way too much anyway, and you guys shouldn't be getting paid that much anyway, and stop complaining and get back on the field and blah, blah, blah. Which always surprises me, how people will side with the billionaires over
that's the best part.
But the thing is, the vast majority, I don't want to say the vast majority, a lot of big leaguers are not millionaires. People think that we're making all these millions of dollars, but as the last 10 years, the amount of veteran free agents in the league has dropped percentage-wise, and the amount of young players, 0 to 3 arbitration players,
who are on the minimum
has
are
risen.
making.
And big league minimum is
It's about 550,000.
Okay, so let's just run that down real quick. So do some quick math. Let's say it's 550, right? Now we already agreed that we're going to take proration, so that's 82 games. So let's just call it half.
So about
So 275. Let me make sure I'm doing my math right. 275. All right, but then you're still in the top tax bracket.
So
that's not going away. So you're getting half of that goes to taxes. So you're going to get 39%, 37%, 39%, whatever it is now to the federal government. You're going to pay, but traveling between states and all that different stuff, you're going to pay about 8% on average. So you're up in that range, and that's before now you're going to have agent fees, which I don't know how those are going to be handled in a traditional agency that's taking, let's say a traditional agency takes 5%, but that's not tax deductible. So you have to earn. It's really 10% of your overall salary.
It's a mess, yeah.
So by the time you whittle this all down, let's say we get paid half. So now those people are making $275. Half of that again is gone to taxes.
Yeah.
So now you're at $137.5. And then you haven't even paid for your housing in the home city. You haven't paid any fees, any agent fees, any financial advisor fees, anything like that. Okay, and so now, and maybe you have a family.
I mean, regardless, you're making we're not talking, yes, they are making, for most people, they are making a lot of money.
No doubt.
But to just call them all these, whiny millionaires, I mean, most of them look like what you just explained, especially in this scenario. And we're talking about we're not talking about them in comparison to the nurses, the doctors out there, which God bless them, and they've done a great job, and I admire them for everything they're doing, and sure, they should make more, but this is how much players make, and we're talking about it in relation to billionaires that are making way more than you guys are making right now.
One of the examples of that, you look at the Los Angeles Lakers and what happened when it came out that they took a PPP loan. So you have this $1 billion corporation that's taking relief money that's supposed to go to small businesses and stuff. Now, they ended up giving it back, but there's a huge public outcry about that. Yet, fans will still side with the billionaire teams over the millionaires or not even millionaires that are.
And to me, I guess the issue of whether players should make, it has nothing to do with your belief on whether players should make the amount of money that they make or not is completely irrelevant in this conversation. We're not debating that, and if somebody would like to debate that with us, we could do it another time.
Sure.
We're not debating that at all. There are countries, two of my best friends are from the Czech Republic, and they would tell me about how over there the doctors are paid less than janitors because that's what society chooses to value. And so it's actually more lucrative to be a janitor. So society, whatever, has put us in this position. This is how much you're making. The billionaires are making what they're making. The nurses and the teachers are making what they're making. It says nothing about the value of their job.
We can have a moral discussion about whether it should be that way or not, but it is that way.
But it is this way, and what this discussion is about, and I hope this is clear, is that the issue of we had lawyers on both sides negotiate in good faith and agree to terms. And now one side is basically asking for the other side to go back on the agreement and give a little bit more. The side also that has way more money.
Yeah.
So that's what this is about. It's not about, should players be paid this much? Should the billionaires be paid this much? That's a separate discussion. But this was negotiated, agreed. You guys already gave up money that you were guaranteed.
Yep.
And now they're asking for a little more while you guys go and take a risk that the owners aren't taking.
Yeah.
To bring sports back. And again, let's just say that I think everyone wants sports to come back.
No doubt.
But I think it needs to be fair, and it needs to be safe.
Yeah.
And I think players, can stand firm on what they've agreed to, And I think we can get baseball back if owners, respect the prior agreement.
Yeah. Safety first for not only players, but for the fans, for the support staff, for everybody in the organization. Most important, getting baseball back is important to a lot of people that rely on baseball and sports for entertainment. It's a huge part of society. And then being treated fairly, is a big thing. But with all the points that we've laid out, I think we can both agree that this is probably going to get somewhat nasty. There's going to be contentious negotiations about it. There's going to be other stuff in the media. There'll be lots of articles about the greedy players, not very many articles about the greedy billionaires. And again, not saying that, I'm not trying to classify people by, oh, you're only a millionaire or you're a billionaire, so you're bad or good or whatever. It's just, this is kind of how these things play out. So with the public information that we have right now, that's kind of where this is at. It's probably going to get kind of contentious. It's going to get a little bit nasty in the media. And hopefully we can get it all worked out where both sides are treated fairly, everyone's safe, and fans can be entertained and watch their favorite sport again, which is what we all want. But
fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that one. But that's it for today. See you guys in the next one.